So in the last part we have learned about diaphragm, its movement, what is inspiration and expiration, and we will continue the human respiratory system with the next topic, epiglottis. Epiglottis is nothing but it's a flap-like muscular valve that controls the movement of food and air towards their respective passage. So whenever we intake the food, the flap-like muscle or leaf-like structure called epiglottis will be covering the trachea, the windpipe. Thereby the food enters into the next part, the esophagus. So it prevents the food particles to enter into the trachea and diverts its movement into the esophagus. So it will be partially closed when we swallow the food. It changes the direction of the food to the esophagus and keeps the trachea out of its reach. And that is the structure epiglottis. Epiglottis is a flap-like structure that mainly controls what? Movement of food and air, where it prevents the food entry into the trachea and diverts the food into its respective passage, that is esophagus or food pipe, and that is what epiglottis is. The next is gaseous exchange. So under breathing we have learned two very much important concepts, that is diaphragm, inspiration, expiration, and then the next is epiglottis. So under gaseous exchange at lungs level, so basically we have seen the sac-like structures called alveolus, right? So here the exchange of gases mainly occurs between the blood and the alveolus, as you can see here diagrammatically. So the oxygen will be entering into the blood capillaries and the CO2 will be released from the blood capillaries and will be entering into the alveolus through the alveolar membrane. Gaseous exchange takes place within the lungs by diffusion from the alveoli to blood capillaries and vice versa. So here diffusion is the process mainly occurring and leading to the exchange of gases. The air that enters into the lungs have high concentration of oxygen comparing to the concentration of oxygen in the blood capillaries. What is the diffusion concept here? It is nothing but the movement of substance from higher concentration to lower concentration is termed as diffusion. So thereby, because of the concentration gradient, here oxygen will be entering into the blood capillaries and CO2 is entering into the alveolus, right? Alveoli in the lungs are numerous, so they are numerous and are surrounded by blood capillaries. Blood from the heart passes through the capillaries that runs through alveoli are called pulmonary capillaries. These capillaries collect oxygen from the alveoli. At the same time, carbon dioxide passes out of the capillaries and enters into the alveoli. When I'm talking about blood capillaries, you need to understand that there are two kinds of capillaries here. The first is the artery and the second is vein. Okay, so vein will collect the carbon dioxide from the tissue level and it transported it to the alveoli part, and the blood capillary artery will arteries will collect the oxygen from the alveolus and transport it to the heart and thereby to the rest of the body. And that is how the gaseous exchange occurs at lungs level. And the next part is gas transport by blood. So we have seen that mainly the oxygen will be carried by veins to the lungs and the arteries will carry oxygen from the lungs to the rest of the body and it is transported through the blood capillaries, right? So in the blood capillaries, oxygen is diffused in the blood and it will bind to the hemoglobin part of the blood, and you already know what is hemoglobin. It's a protein present in the red blood cells. So oxygen will be binding to the hemoglobin in the red blood cell, and it forms complex called oxyhemoglobin. So as you can see here, when it comes to lungs level, so hemoglobin will be binding up with the oxygen in arteries, and then oxyhemoglobin will be formed. And at the tissue level, the hemoglobin and oxygen will be dissociating, and thereby oxygen will be entering into the tissues. And when it comes to carbon dioxide, which is carried out by the veins, it will be carried out in three ways. The first one as a bicarbonate component, the second is carboxyhemoglobin, and third is as a gas diffused in the blood. So carbon monoxide, when binds to the hemoglobin part of the red blood cells, forms a complex called carboxyhemoglobin. And these three types, or you can say in these three forms of the carbon dioxide will be released from the body through the lung region, and thereby again, when this carboxyhemoglobin reaches at the lungs level, it will be dissociating and thereby released as a gas outside the body, right? And the next part is gaseous exchange at tissue level. So at the tissue level, the capillaries over the tissues, nothing but like how we have seen the blood capillaries surrounding the alveolus, similarly at tissue level the blood capillaries are surrounded to the tissues. So exchange of oxygen from the blood into the cells, or you can say it as tissues, and carbon dioxide from the cells into the blood. So here oxygen will be taken up into the cells, or you can say tissues. Why? Again, because of the concentration gradient here. So at tissue level or at cell level, cell continuously utilizes oxygen, and thereby the concentration of the oxygen in at the cellular level decreases. Hence the oxygen dissociates as oxygen and hemoglobin, and it will be entering into the cells for usage, for like the breakdown of food to release energy. And similar goes with carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, which is a byproduct of respiration, will be released from the cells and entering into the blood. And which blood capillary? Again, it's vein. So oxyhemoglobin will be dissociated, right, into the oxygen and into oxygen and hemoglobin. The oxygen molecule at the tissue level, certain amount of carbon dioxide is bonded to hemoglobin. You already know the other two types which we have just learned. Now we need to understand the next concept, cellular respiration. So under internal respiration, we have gaseous transport by blood, then we have gaseous exchange at tissue level, and we have cellular respiration. So respiration that is occurring at cellular level is termed to be the cellular respiration. It is the pathway by which the chemical breakdown of food is occurring, and thereby the energy is released, which will be used up by the cells to carry out the life process. So you can understand, for a living being like us, it is very much important for us to have a continuous cellular respiration, such that the life process occurring in our body carries out and we get energy to survive. So the energy that releases will not be released at once. So we are saying that chemical breakdown of food, and thereby energy is released. But here the chemical breakdown of food directly doesn't occur. It occurs through a series of chemical reaction, and thereby with the small amount of breakdown of the food, we release small amount of energy, and thereby at last all the energy is released through certain reactions. So cellular respiration that occurs and the presence of oxygen is said to be aerobic respiration, and in the absence of oxygen it is said to be anaerobic respiration. So when we are saying that energy is released in this both process, so ATP is formed. ATP is nothing but it's a component that stores the energy, and basically how much energy is nothing but 7200 calories of energy is being stored in each ATP molecule, hence it is considered to be the energy currency of cell. So whenever our body needs energy, so this ATP molecules releases energy by the breakdown of phosphate bonds. So ATP is storing the energy in its phosphate bonds. Why we are saying it as phosphate bonds? The name itself, ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that means this molecule is made up of phosphate bonds and the energy is stored in phosphate bonds. When these bonds breaks, then only the energy releases. So here is a general example. When we talk about the nutrient glucose, which was formed in the small intestine, was absorbed through the villi and thereby transported to blood capillaries and to the cells. Here in the presence of oxygen, right, it is giving rise to energy and the byproduct CO2 and H2O. Okay, and in eukaryotic cells, cytoplasm and mitochondria are the sites for the reaction, hence mitochondria is said to be the powerhouse of the cell. So whatever the ATP is produced will be stored in mitochondria, hence it is said to be the powerhouse of cell. In terms of prokaryotes, cellular respiration takes place in cytoplasm, that is the fluid like substance present in a cell. So in prokaryotes, cellular respiration occurs in cytoplasm, wherein in eukaryotes it's mainly occurs in cytoplasm, but the energy released in the form of ATP will be stored in the mitochondria, and thereby so mitochondria is said to be the powerhouse of the cell. And by this we have concluded our topic, the human respiratory system. And thank you for watching this video, and hope you like this video. And if you have any recommendation regarding any topic, you could let me know in the comment below.